So I've been going through these videos on this Facebook group called Walk Away Campaign, well, hashtag Walk Away Campaign. You might have heard of it, or if you are so fortunate, you have found this video because you're interested in it. And I'm going to have a particular take on it. But what it is so far, I've been looking at it for the last couple days, is to all intents and purposes, viral, that is spontaneous and not yet influenced by any backer. And it's a movement started by this guy named Brandon. And Brandon made this video where he's really handsome and he's looking directly into the camera and there's a black background. And he talks about why he's walking away from the party, or the left. And what you have here is that he just started this, he asked other people for videos, and now you have all these videos popping up. And this is just from his page, but there's a whole bunch on YouTube. And I've been going through and listening to them, and the really cool thing about them, well, first, let's get up here. And I'm not going to be bitchy about it, but I think this is really cool. And you can tell that it's neither like bots nor a professional operation that's running this, because they put the copyright symbol right at the end of walk away. And you don't really need to do that. You just need a registered trademark. It's always kind of cute, though, when people put copyright symbol on things, because you don't really need to. It doesn't really matter. It's just assumed, right? It's implicit. It's implicit, even though people like me and other people on this internet thing constantly steal artwork and don't do that well with attributing the artwork. But anyways, that's not going to protect the name. What's going to protect the name is the value of the name. So it's hashtag walk away. And what it is so far is just a bunch of people from all over the place talking about their reasons why they feel alienated by the Democratic Party. So we have young people, old people, and everybody. And the cool thing about it, just from an anthropological level or a aesthetic level even, is just experiencing all these different people from their different places and their own weird frameworks of the world and their language patterns and what they're talking about, where they're talking from. And everybody's weird. This is not scrubbed down, sanitized content. This is raw content. This is beautiful. And I'm surprised that this is the first thing that I've seen. Maybe there's been other things like this, but first time that I've seen just confessionals of people engaging in the political process. And that's why I think this is potentially a very new, powerful, not just movement, but medium of interrelationships, where people are gathering together to talk about a certain problem. People just like the people that I've been meeting at these moderate meetups that I've been having in Portland and Olympia and up in Seattle, where I just invite people through Twitter and YouTube and not so much Facebook, because Facebook is not for the person that I am when I'm talking. It's the person that I am when I'm being thought of as a friend and a family member. And not that you can't think of me that way, but they're just two different personalities. So I invited a bunch of people through my various social networks, and we showed up and we ended up talking, and I heard a lot of stories about people who were basically progressive, or more or less wanted to be progressive, or had certain progressive values, or certain sets of values that the Democrats espoused resonated with them. And over the last few years, people have been increasingly alienated. And another cool aspect of this group is that you have people from all these different categories that the Democratic ideology, or it's not even theoretical. There's all these identities that the Democrats have been championing as their specific identities, that you should vote for the Democrats and the Democrats are going to help them. And just a couple months ago, there was that response by one very young Kennedy to the president's State of the Union address. And this very young Kennedy, if I remember, he had red hair, and he was drooling profusely, and he was nervous as all hell, and he probably should have been given a Xanax, but he's just stuttering on stage and giving this it was supposed to be this rousing speech, but
hatred and supremacy proudly marching in our streets. Bullets tearing through our classrooms, concerts, and congregations.
The main refrain within that speech of his was that, we are the party of, LGBT and Q and immigrants and people of socioeconomic disparities and disabled people. They were championing identity. They were putting identity front and center. And having watched this stuff for more than a year, is that this game of identity, it can't play out if people start to treat themselves and other people as individuals. And that's why this sort of movement, as Walk Away, is going to potentially have a very powerful effect. The way in which to derail identity politics is to switch it with the individual. The identity is one layer in which individuals can interact through or find certain sorts of forms of interaction arising from or through the relationships of different identities. So intersectionality, all that stuff, it's true insofar as it's true, but once you start to let that be center, once you put the identity first and center, you have a huge problem where the individual is always going to be in the way of identity, and identity is always going to be in the way of the individual. And what we have here is a bunch of individuals with a variety of different identities. There's Christians who believe in prophecy, there's drag queens, there's black guys, there's Hispanic people, there's old women, young women, lesbian women. Another very refreshing thing about this is that there's a lot of patriotism being expressed by all these individuals. A lot of people who really love the promise of America and the promise of this country. And I've seen a lot of people bag on the United States for a really long time. And I understand that there needs to be that. There absolutely needs to be criticism of the people who control the country and of the government itself. Like, we should always be criticizing it and stuff. But that's different than believing in the project that is filled with other living human beings, right? There's the praising and the criticizing of the institution, and then there is the participation, the willing participation, the throwing your hat in with other people who believe in the cause of America, whatever that cause is. And the cool thing is that you see all these different people, they're giving their own position and they're giving their own hope. And even though they're reacting to this negativity, it seems like they're reacting in a positive manner, right? They're not just like I've been critiquing with a lot of the deconstructionist stuff and the post-Marxist stuff or the neo-Marxist stuff or whatever that stuff is. They look at the problem, they look at colonialism, they look at privilege, and they just concentrate and uplift all that oppression. They uplift all the bad things, and then they end up manifesting it. It gets out of control for them. These people, it seems like so far this movement, it's very young, fresh, and naive. It seems like people are reacting to that toxicity, and they're reacting to it by way of acting toward something else, not purely just against this thing. So doing all this YouTube stuff, it comes up quite a bit. I end up talking about politics, and people end up describing my politics to me. It's an active question. I kind of avoid it because I don't want to be in one position. I don't find a lot of strength in being in one position. I find strength, and actually I find life in the movement of positions and the interactivity between positions. That's the stuff that I'm interested in participating in. And so if I get too stuck in one place, I'm going to lose the plasticity. And I know that might have something to do with the fact that I might not have as much integrity as one would hope, but at the same time, I'm able to go and to contact people with a bunch of different ideologies on, a variety of spectrum. So I keep myself artistically aloof, but I thought that Bernie Sanders would be able to breathe fresh air into the political process, right? I don't know if I necessarily thought he would do wonderful or if he would be thoroughly inept, but I trusted him a lot. I had a feeling of trust for that guy. And the way in which the Democratic Party treated him and the way that the news media treated him was totally, it was just openly prejudiced. It was just so openly prejudiced and dismissive. And then also watching different things happen in the media with regards to different communities online, such as the whole Gamergate thing, watching that and watching how this group of people is being infiltrated by a bunch of judgmental, basically assholes and bitches, like coming in and trying to impose their ideology on this community over here. And then, not least of all, going to Evergreen and watching that ideological creep get more and more intense until there was no way to stand against it at all. where it just became a tidal wave, and the whole thing like kind of shook out. And once I started looking at it, just as once I started looking at Gamergate, and once I started looking at the way that the Democratic Party treated Bernie Sanders, I just see a whole bunch of bad actors. I see a whole bunch of people who are lying. And even if they have good intentions, they're causing fear. They're causing the shutdown of respect between people. They're killing that which forms a community into a healthy whole, right? This utterly toxic stuff. And seeing that represented on a political level, like my enemy is that. I'm not necessarily for any set of policies, whether they're extremely liberal, extremely conservative. They kind of lose me over there, but I like this kind of this modularity of mixing and matching and tugging and pulling between positions that are oriented differently, but still respectful in their engagement, and even understanding that they require struggle to get better and to actually produce something that is really strong and stable and unique and alive and so on. So I don't necessarily want to say what I'm for in the political sense, right? But whatever this walk-away thing is, I think it has a lot of potential, and I commend these people, and I would love to just keep on watching all the different stories that come up in this kind of this narrative format. This is really open for a lot of people to interact. That's the one thing that I should point out. The amazingness of politics as a way for people to interact, not just negatively, but to meet from all these different viewpoints, all these different life experiences and masteries and predilections, to meet and to come together over topics of politics. How can we structure dialogue in such a way that a lot of people can be passionate and still the resonance of that chamber of discussion is harmonious, is in the net sense harmonious. And one of the ways that I think we need to go, or one of the ways in which I think we can move there, is to return to face-to-face interaction, or at least until we get it through our heads that when we type things on the internet and when we do make videos, we're talking about and we're talking to real people. And returning to that is, I think it might be something that we need to practice, and it might be something that people could possibly monetize without corrupting wholly. But that's always the risk of these things going forward. So I'll link the links to the links in the link box, and here's a kitty cat video, and I hope your July is going wonderful. It's not too hot here, but I think it might be pretty soon. Cheerio.